Time Mala had worked as a council observer for 200 years. Her job was simple but important. She monitored the thousands of automated systems that kept the galaxy running smoothly. Warning beacons, communication relays, border sensors, and countless other devices all fell under her careful watch. Most days were quiet and uneventful. She would check her screens, confirm that everything was working properly, and move on to the next task. On this particular morning, something was different. She noticed the irregularity while reviewing routine status reports. Quarantine Zone 7734, a restricted area on the far edge of explored space, had stopped transmitting. The warning beacons that had operated without interruption for 3,000 years had suddenly gone silent. Time Mala checked the records. The last transmission had been received 12 hours ago. All 47 beacons in the network had stopped broadcasting at almost exactly the same time. Her first thought was equipment failure. 3,000 years was a long time, even for galactic-grade technology. Perhaps the power systems had finally given out. Perhaps a solar flare had damaged the sensitive electronics. There were many possible explanations, all of them ordinary and mundane. But something about the situation made her uneasy. She pulled up the historical files on Quarantine Zone 7734 and read through them carefully. The zone contained a single inhabited planet, classified as a Class 7 biohazard. The native species had been primitive and was expected to go extinct within a few centuries of the quarantine being established. No updates had been recorded since the original survey 3,000 years ago. Time Mala made a decision. She would send a drone to investigate. The small unmanned craft was dispatched within the hour. It would take several days to reach the quarantine zone, but the journey was well within the capabilities of standard exploration drones. Time Mala programmed it to approach carefully, record everything it encountered, and return immediately if it detected any signs of danger. Then, she waited. 4 days later, the drone entered the Sol system. What it recorded would change the course of galactic history. The quarantine beacons were gone, not broken, not damaged, but completely removed from their positions around the solar system. In their place stood something else entirely. Massive structures orbited the third planet, platforms of metal and glass that stretched for kilometers in every direction. Thousands of ships moved between these platforms, vessels of unfamiliar design that bore no resemblance to any known species. And signals were broadcasting everywhere. Radio waves and data streams filled the space around the planet, carrying information in patterns that were clearly artificial but utterly foreign. The drone moved closer, trying to gather more data. As it approached the outer orbital platforms, it was detected. Admiral Kevin Marshall stood on the bridge of the Starship Endeavour, watching the tactical display with calm interest. The alien probe had been tracked from the moment it entered the system, and its approach had been carefully monitored. Now it hung in space, just beyond the defensive perimeter, its sensors scanning everything within range. Kevin was a patient man. He had gray hair and steady hands, the result of 40 years of military service. He had led humanity through the chaos of discovering the quarantine beacons, the long years of studying them, and the careful process of dismantling the network. He had prepared his entire life for this moment. First contact with alien intelligence. Commander Amanda Torres stood beside him, her dark eyes fixed on the display. She was younger than Kevin, but just as experienced. She had been his second in command for 15 years, and there was no one he trusted more. "It is definitely a probe," she said. "Automated, no life signs. Probably sent to investigate when the beacons went silent." Kevin nodded slowly. They finally noticed. "What do we do?" Kevin considered the question carefully. Humanities had known about the quarantine for over a century. They had found the first beacon drifting in the outer reaches of the solar system and had spent decades learning to read its warnings. The message had been clear. The galaxy believed Earth was a death world, too dangerous for contact. Humanity had been deliberately isolated, cut off from the rest of intelligent life. The discovery had sparked fierce debates across Earth. Some people were angry, furious that alien civilizations had decided humanity was not worth saving. Others were frightened, worried about what might happen if the galaxy ever discovered that humans had survived. A few saw opportunity, believing that contact with advanced species could benefit humanity in countless ways. In the end, the decision had been made to prepare. Humanity would not hide in fear. They would not reach out in desperation. They would build themselves into a power that could not be ignored, and then they would announce their presence on their own terms. Now, after a century of preparation, that moment had arrived. "Let it record everything," Kevin said. "Let it see our stations, our ships, our defenses. Let it carry back a message." "What message?" Kevin turned to face the communications officer. "Open a channel to the probe. Standard translation protocols." The officer worked quickly, and within moments, a connection was established. Kevin stepped forward and spoke clearly. "This message is for the Galactic Council. We are the humans of Earth. 3,000 years ago, you looked at our world and decided we were not worth saving. You locked us behind a wall of warnings and left us to die. We did not die. We survived. We grew. We built. And now we are ready to take our place among the stars." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We request formal audience with the Galactic Council. We come in peace, but we will not be caged again. We will not be quarantined. We will be treated as equals, or we will find our own path. The choice is yours." The message was recorded and transmitted directly to the probe's memory systems. Kevin ordered the defensive perimeter to open, allowing the small craft to turn and begin its long journey back to Council space. Amanda watched it go. "They are going to be afraid of us." "Good," Kevin replied. "Fear is a reasonable starting point. We can build something better from there. And if they decide we are too dangerous, if they try to establish another quarantine?" Kevin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then they will learn just how dangerous we really are. We did not survive 3,000 years on a death world by being easy to kill." The drone disappeared into the darkness of space, carrying its precious cargo of images and recordings and warnings. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council would receive this information and would have to decide what to do with the species they had abandoned so long ago. Kevin turned back to the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars. Humanity had spent all of recorded history looking up at those distant lights and wondering if anyone was out there. Now they knew the answer. There was life among the stars, countless species spread across thousands of worlds. And soon, very soon, those species would have to make room for one more. The Grand Assembly Hall on Velar Prime was the largest enclosed space in the known galaxy. It had been built over 10,000 years ago to house the growing Galactic Council, and it had been expanded many times since. The central chamber could hold representatives from over 400 species, each seated in specially designed pods that matched their environmental needs. Some breathed oxygen, others breathed methane. Some required intense heat, others needed freezing cold. The hall accommodated them all. Today, every seat was filled. High Counselor Drathovan stood at the central podium, his massive frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. He was a Torvok, one of the most powerful species in the council. His people were covered in thick armored plates and stood nearly 3 meters tall. They had been warriors once, before they learned that cooperation was more profitable than conquest. "Silence," he commanded, and his voice echoed through the chamber. The noise died slowly. representatives who had been arguing with their neighbors fell quiet. Translation devices adjusted to carry Drathvin's words to every corner of the room. All eyes, whatever form they took, turned toward the podium. "We have all reviewed the data from the probe," Drathvin continued. "We have all seen the recordings. The situation is unprecedented in the history of the Council. A quarantine species has not only survived, but has developed advanced technology. They have dismantled our warning network and established a presence in their solar system that rivals some of our member worlds. They should be destroyed," hissed Ambassador Silvera of the Kreeth Dominion. The Kreeth were reptilian creatures with scales the color of dried blood and eyes that never blinked. They had a reputation for aggression that made other species nervous. Quarantine protocols exist for a reason. Whatever emerged from that death world is a threat to us all. Murmurs of agreement rippled through parts of the chamber. Many species shared the Kreeth concerns. The humans had survived conditions that should have killed them. What did that say about their nature? What kind of civilization could grow from such brutal origins? But other voices rose in opposition. "We cannot condemn an entire species without hearing them," said Councillor Yerental of the Velrani. Her crystalline form pulsed with soft blue light as she spoke. "They have requested an audience. They have offered to come in peace. We must at least give them the opportunity to explain themselves." The debate continued for hours. Species argued about law, about precedent, about the potential dangers and the potential benefits of contact. Some wanted to send warships to re-establish the quarantine. Others wanted to welcome the humans as new members of the galactic community. Most were simply confused, unsure how to respond to something that had never happened before. Finally, Drathven raised his hand for silence once more. "The humans will be given their audience," he declared. "This is the law. Any species that achieves faster than light travel has the right to address the Council. Whatever our concerns, we will hear what they have to say." The decision was not popular with everyone, but it was accepted. Messages were sent, arrangements were made, and a date was set for the historic meeting. 3 weeks later, the human delegation arrived. Their ship was smaller than expected, a sleek vessel that looked almost primitive compared to the massive craft that filled Velar Station. It docked at the designated port, and a security team was dispatched to escort the visitors to the Grand Assembly Hall. Captain Nathan Price led the delegation. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and dark hair just starting to show traces of gray. He had been chosen for this mission because of his reputation for calm thinking and clear communication. Beside him walked Dr. Lauren Mitchell, a woman with kind eyes and a sharp mind. She was their chief scientist, responsible for explaining the mysteries of human biology and history. Behind them came Christopher Yang, their diplomatic attaché, a young man who had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. They wore simple uniforms in dark blue, with a symbol on their chests showing a blue planet circled by olive branches. They carried no weapons, though every species in the galaxy knew that humans did not need weapons to be dangerous. The walk through Velar Station was long and filled with staring eyes. Species of every description watched the humans pass, studying them with curiosity and fear. Many had never seen a human before. The recordings from the probe had shown them as small and soft, nothing compared to the armored Torvak or the powerful Kreeth. But there was something about the way they moved, a confidence that seemed out of place on such fragile-looking creatures. The doors to the Grand Assembly Hall opened, and the human delegation stepped inside. 400 species fell silent. Nathan walked to the central platform and looked up at the assembled council. He saw creatures of every shape and size, beings that breathed different atmospheres and perceived the universe in ways humans could barely imagine. He saw hostility in some eyes and curiosity in others. He saw the weight of 3,000 years of abandonment pressing down on this single moment. He took a breath and began to speak. Members of the Galactic Council, thank you for receiving us. I understand that our presence here has caused some concern. 3,000 years ago, your predecessors looked at our world and decided that we were not worth saving. They believed we would die, consumed by the dangers of our own planet. They were wrong. Drath then leaned forward. The quarantine was established for the safety of the galaxy. Your world was classified as a Class 7 biohazard. Your survival is remarkable, but it does not change the reasons for that classification. Lauren stepped forward, activating a small device that projected images into the air above the platform. Perhaps I can explain. You classified Earth based on its dangers: extreme temperatures, atmospheric instability, pathogenic diversity, predatory fauna. All of these things are true. Our world is exactly as dangerous as your surveys indicated. The images showed Earth in all its terrifying glory. Hurricanes spinning across vast oceans. Volcanoes erupting with enough force to darken skies for years. Predators hunting through dense forests, their teeth and claws designed for killing. But what you failed to understand, Lauren continued, is that these conditions did not prevent our evolution. They drove it. Every danger you identified, every threat you cataloged, became a pressure that forced us to adapt. We learned to survive, not despite our world, but because of it. New images appeared. Humans building shelters against the cold. Humans crafting weapons to hunt the creatures that hunted them. Humans developing medicine to fight the diseases that plagued their bodies. You see a death world, Lauren said, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. We see home. Ambassador Silvera rose from her seat. Pretty words do not change reality. Your world produces organisms that could devastate entire sectors. Your own biology is adapted to conditions that would kill most species in this room. How can we trust that your presence here is not a danger to us all? Nathan answered before Lauren could respond. You ought to know if we are a threat. That is a fair question. Let me give you a fair answer. Yes, we are dangerous. We survived a world that tried to kill us every single day. We fought predators and plagues and each other. We are exactly the kind of species your quarantine was designed to contain. He paused, letting the tension build. But we are also more than that. We learned something else on our death world. We learned that cooperation is strength. We learned that knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. We learned that the universe does not care about survival of the strongest. It cares about survival of those who adapt, who work together, who build something greater than themselves. Nathan looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. We did not come here to threaten you. We came here to offer partnership. We have survived conditions that would have destroyed any species in this room. We have developed technologies that might benefit worlds you have written off as lost causes. We have strength to offer, and we are willing to share it. He straightened, his voice growing firm. But understand this, we will not be quarantined again. We will not be locked away and forgotten. We have earned our place among the stars, and we intend to claim it. Work with us, and we can build something extraordinary together. Stand against us, and you will discover exactly how dangerous a Death World species can be. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the debate began again. But this time there was something different in the air. The Grand Assembly Hall remained in session for 3 days. The Galactic Council demanded a complete accounting of human history, and the delegation was prepared to provide it. They had known this moment would come. They had spent decades preparing the information, organizing it in ways that alien minds could understand. Dr. Ryan Walsh was called forward on the second day. He was an older man, with white hair, and glasses that he did not really need, but wore anyway out of habit. He had spent his entire career studying human history, and now he would present that history to an audience unlike any that had come before. He began at the beginning. Our species emerged approximately 300,000 years ago on the continent now known as Africa. We were not the dominant species on our world. We were not the fastest, the strongest, or the most deadly. In almost every physical category, we were outmatched by other creatures. We should have been nothing more than prey. The holographic display showed early humans, small groups of vulnerable creatures moving across a dangerous landscape. Predators watched them from the shadows. The world around them was harsh and unforgiving. But we had one advantage, Ryan continued, our brains. We could think in ways that other creatures could not. We could plan for the future. We could learn from the past. We could communicate complex ideas to each other and pass knowledge from one generation to the next. The images shifted, showing humans crafting tools, building shelters, working together in organized groups. Within a few thousand years, we had spread across our entire planet. We adapted to every environment we encountered. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense jungles, open plains. Wherever we went, we found ways to survive. Counselor Yarantal raised a question. The predators on your world. The records indicate numerous apex species capable of killing humans easily. How did you coexist with such creatures? Ryan smiled, but there was something hard in his eyes. We did not coexist with them. We hunted them. When they were faster than us, we built traps. When they were stronger than us, we crafted weapons. When they attacked our communities, we organized hunting parties and tracked them to their dens. Within a few thousand years, most apex predators on Earth had learned to fear humans. The ones that did not learn are now extinct or exist only in protected reserves, kept alive because we choose to preserve them. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Ryan continued, moving through the long ages of human history. He spoke of the ice ages, periods when massive sheets of ice covered much of the planet, and temperatures dropped so low that survival seemed impossible. Humans had endured them all, huddling in caves, wearing the skins of animals they had killed, burning fires that pushed back the killing cold. He spoke of diseases, plagues that swept across continents and killed millions. He showed images of bodies piled in streets, of entire cities falling silent as their populations died. And then he showed how humans had fought back, developing medicine and vaccines, and eventually learning to control the invisible killers that had once seemed unstoppable. He spoke of wars. This was the part of the presentation that worried the delegation most. Human history was soaked in blood. Conflicts had erupted over land, resources, religion, ideology, and sometimes nothing at all. Entire civilizations had been destroyed by their neighbors. Weapons had grown more terrible with each passing generation, until humans possessed the ability to destroy their entire species with the push of a button. The council listened in horrified silence as Ryan described atomic weapons, biological warfare, and the long centuries of conflict that had shaped human society. He did not hide anything. He did not make excuses. He presented the truth in all its terrible glory. You are asking us to accept your species into the galactic community, said Ambassador Silvera, when he had finished. Yet you have just described a history of endless violence and destruction. How can we trust that you will not bring this same chaos to the stars? Ryan nodded, acknowledging the concern. You are right to ask. Our history is violent. We have done terrible things to each other. But consider what that history represents. Every war we fought, we survived. Every plague that struck us, we overcame. Every disaster that threatened our existence, we endured. We are still here. And more importantly, we learned from our mistakes. He pulled up new images showing the modern Earth. Cities of gleaming towers, farms that fed billions of people, hospitals that saved lives that would have been lost just a few generations earlier, ships that crossed the void between worlds. We unified our planet 200 years ago. The wars ended. The old conflicts were resolved. We turned our energy outward, toward the stars. We found your quarantine beacons and learned that we were not alone in the universe. We could have been angry. We could have been afraid. Instead, we chose to prepare ourselves for this moment. High Counselor Drathaven spoke slowly, his deep voice filling the chamber. Your species survived conditions that should have destroyed you. You developed technology at a rate that our scientists consider impossible. You unified a planet that was tearing itself apart. And now you stand before us, asking for partnership. Yes, Ryan replied simply. What exactly are you offering? Captain Nathan Price stepped forward to answer. We have spent the last century developing technologies specifically designed for hostile environments. Worlds that your species have abandoned as uninhabitable, we could colonize. Diseases that have no cure in your databases, we could potentially treat. We have experience with adaptation that no other species in the galaxy possesses. He paused, looking around the chamber. But more than technology, we offer perspective. You have built a civilization that values stability and safety. That is admirable. But stability can become stagnation. Safety can become fear. We have lived our entire existence on the edge of destruction, and that has made us strong in ways that are hard to explain. Ambassador Krelvos, descendant of the original Velrani counselor who had authorized the quarantine, asked the question that everyone was thinking. You could have hidden. You could have stayed in your system and built your power in secret. Why reveal yourselves now? Why risk everything by coming here? Nathan smiled. Because hiding is not who we are. We have always reached for the unknown. We have always pushed beyond our boundaries. Staying hidden would have been safe, but it would have meant accepting the cage that was built around us. We refuse to accept that. He straightened, his voice growing stronger. 3,000 years ago, your ancestors looked at our world and saw death. They saw the storms and the predators and the diseases, and they assumed that nothing good could come from such chaos. Chaos is where we learn to adapt. Hardship is where we found our strength. You gave us 3,000 years alone, thinking you were protecting the galaxy from us. Nathan let the silence stretch for a moment. Perhaps you should consider what we became during those 3,000 years. We taught ourselves to fly. We split the atom. We walked on our moon and built cities on other worlds. We conquered diseases that had killed billions of our ancestors. We turned our own weapons away from each other and toward the stars. He met the eyes of every counselor who would look at him. And through all of it, we never forgot how to hope. We never stopped believing that the universe held wonders beyond our imagination. We never gave up on the idea that somewhere out there, other intelligent species were waiting to be met. Nathan took a breath before finishing. You left us alone on a death world, expecting us to die. Instead, we built a civilization capable of standing as your equal. Now we ask you to decide. Will you accept us as partners? Or will you make us prove just how dangerous a death world species can be? The choice is yours, but I hope you choose wisely. The council fell silent, and the weight of that silence seemed to fill the entire chamber. The vote would come soon. The vote took place on the morning of the 4th day. High Counselor Drathaven stood at the central podium, the weight of history pressing down on his armored shoulders. In all his years of service, he had never faced a decision like this one. The fate of an entire species rested on what happened in the next few minutes. More than that, the future of the entire galaxy might be shaped by the choice the Council was about to make. The motion before this assembly is simple, he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. Do we accept humanity as a member species of the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails? The vote will now proceed. One by one, the representatives cast their decisions. Lights flickered across the massive display board at the front of the chamber, green for acceptance and red for rejection. The human delegation watched in silence, their faces carefully controlled, despite the tension they must have been feeling. The Velrani voted yes, their crystalline forms pulsing with soft light as they recorded their decision. They had been the ones to discover Earth 3,000 years ago, and now they chose to welcome the species they had once abandoned. The Kreeth Dominion voted no. Ambassador Silvera made her opposition clear with a hiss of disapproval that needed no translation. Her people had built their power on strength and aggression, and they saw the humans as rivals rather than potential partners. The Torvok voted yes, their heavy hands pressing the acceptance buttons with deliberate force. High Counselor Drathven had argued privately that a species capable of surviving Earth's conditions could be a valuable ally in the conflicts that occasionally threatened galactic peace. Species after species recorded their votes. Some chose acceptance, seeing opportunity in partnership with the strange creatures from the quarantine zone. Others chose rejection, too afraid of what the humans might become if given access to the resources of the galaxy. Many abstained, unwilling to commit to either side. When the final vote was cast, the display board showed the results. 247 in favor, 112 against, 41 abstentions. The motion had passed. Captain Nathan Price allowed himself a small smile as the results were announced. Beside him, Dr. Lauren Mitchell let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. Christopher Yang simply nodded, already mentally preparing for the enormous amount of work that lay ahead. Drathven raised his hand for silence. The Council has spoken. Humanity is hereby accepted as a member species of the Galactic Council. Your representatives will be given full diplomatic status, and your territories will be recognized under galactic law. Welcome to the community of intelligent life. The chamber erupted in a mix of cheers and complaints. Some species celebrated the historic decision, while others protested loudly. Ambassador Silvera stormed out of the hall, her scales bristling with anger. Other representatives rushed forward to greet the human delegation, eager to establish early connections with the newest members of the galactic family. Admiral Kevin Marshall watched the ceremony from the observation deck of the Endeavour, still docked at Velar Station. Commander Amanda Torres stood beside him as the official documents were signed on the screens below. "It is done," she said quietly. Kevin nodded, his eyes fixed on the distant stars, visible through the transparent walls. "The real work starts now. They are still afraid of us." "Fear is reasonable," Kevin replied. "We are dangerous. They were right to quarantine our world, even if they were wrong about our ability to survive. The question now is whether we can prove that we are more than just survivors. Whether we can show them what we are capable of building." Amanda considered his words. "Do you think we can?" Kevin turned to face her. "I think we have no choice. Humanity has always been defined by how we respond to challenges. This is simply the biggest challenge we have ever faced." In the months that followed, humanity threw itself into the work of integration. Embassies were established on dozens of worlds. Trade agreements were negotiated. Scientific exchanges began, with human researchers sharing their knowledge of hostile environment survival, while alien scientists introduced technologies that seemed like magic to Earthborn minds. The galaxy slowly began to understand what the quarantine zone had truly produced. Human engineers were dispatched to colony worlds that had been failing for generations. They analyzed the problems, adapted their solutions, and transformed dying settlements into thriving communities. Worlds that the Council had written off as lost causes became productive members of the galactic economy. Human doctors developed treatments for diseases that had plagued alien species for centuries. Their experience with Earth's endless variety of pathogens had given them insights that other civilizations lacked. Medical facilities across the galaxy began requesting human consultants. Human explorers ventured into regions of space deemed too dangerous for other species. They mapped uncharted systems, discovered new resources, and opened pathways that had been considered impossible. Their willingness to face danger attracted attention from species who had spent millennia avoiding risk. Not everything went smoothly. There were conflicts and misunderstandings. Some species refused to work with humans, clinging to old fears and prejudices. The Kreeth Dominion remained hostile, viewing humanity as a threat to their position in the galactic hierarchy. Tensions occasionally flared into incidents that required careful diplomatic intervention. But slowly, steadily, humanity earned its place among the stars. 1 year after the historic vote, Captain Nathan Price was invited to address the Council once more. He stood on the same platform where he had made his first speech, looking out at the same assembled representatives. But something had changed in the way they looked back at him. 1 year ago, we stood before you as strangers, Nathan began. You looked at us with fear and suspicion, wondering what kind of monsters the Death World had produced. You worried that we might bring chaos and destruction to your carefully ordered civilization. Those concerns were reasonable. He paused, letting the silence settle. In the year since then, we have tried to show you who we truly are. We are not monsters. We are not conquerors. We are survivors who learned that the only way to truly survive is to build something worth surviving for. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day, and we responded by creating art and music and science and love. We faced extinction countless times, and each time we chose to keep going. Nathan looked around the chamber, seeing faces that had become familiar over the past year. Some still viewed him with distrust, but many more now showed respect or even friendship. You asked what kind of species could emerge from a quarantine zone. Now you have your answer. We are dreamers and builders. We are stubborn and adaptable. We are fragile and resilient. We are everything that our world tried to destroy, and we refuse to be destroyed. He straightened, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. You gave us 3,000 years of isolation, thinking you were protecting the galaxy from us. Perhaps you should consider what we built during those 3,000 years. We built civilizations, we built technologies, we built hope, and now we are building partnerships with species who were once afraid to even look at us. Nathan smiled, and for the first time since he had arrived on Velar Prime, it was a genuine expression of warmth. Thank you for giving us this chance. We intend to make the most of it. The chamber erupted in applause, a sound that would have seemed impossible just 1 year earlier. Humans and aliens standing together, celebrating a future that neither could have imagined alone. Far across the galaxy, the blue planet called Earth continued its endless orbit around its yellow sun. The storm still raged across its surface. The predators still hunted in its forests. The diseases still lurked in its shadows. Nothing about the Death World had changed. But something had changed in how the universe viewed it. Quarantine Zone 7734 was no longer a warning. It was a testament. A reminder that life could flourish in the most hostile conditions imaginable. A proof that the most dangerous thing in the universe was not a world full of death, but a species that refused to accept it. The humans had emerged from their cage, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy was old, older than most species could truly understand. Civilizations had risen and fallen across countless worlds, while the stars themselves barely noticed. The Galactic Council had existed for over 50,000 years, guiding the development of intelligent life and protecting the delicate balance of interstellar peace. They had seen wonders beyond imagination and horrors that still haunted their collective memory. They believed they had seen everything the universe could offer. They were wrong. 3,000 years before the present day, a Velrani exploration vessel was mapping the outer spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy. The Velrani were an ancient species, their bodies made of shimmering light, contained within crystalline forms. They had been among the founding members of the Galactic Council, and took great pride in their role as discoverers and catalogers of new worlds. Captain Yerelven commanded the exploration vessel, Eternal Light. She had spent 400 years exploring the unknown regions of space, and had never encountered anything that truly surprised her. That changed when her ship entered an unremarkable solar system on the edge of explored space. The system contained 8 planets orbiting a medium-sized yellow star. Most of the worlds were either frozen wastelands or burning hellscapes, entirely unsuitable for life. But the third planet from the star caught her attention immediately. It was blue and green and white, wrapped in a thin atmosphere that sparkled in the starlight. Initial scans revealed liquid water covering most of the surface, along with massive continents teeming with biological activity. Life had taken hold on this world in spectacular fashion. Ural then ordered a detailed analysis, and what her science team discovered made her crystalline form flicker with alarm. The planet was a nightmare. The atmosphere was filled with a corrosive gas called oxygen that would destroy most known life forms within minutes. The surface temperature varied wildly, from frozen poles where water turned to solid ice, to equatorial regions hot enough to cause heat damage to most species. Massive storms regularly swept across the continents, bringing winds strong enough to flatten structures and floods that drowned entire regions. But the weather was merely the beginning. The planet was covered with predators. Millions of species competed for survival in an endless cycle of hunting and killing. Creatures with razor-sharp teeth prowled the forests. Venomous animals lurked in every corner. The oceans contained monsters large enough to swallow small spacecraft whole. Even the smallest organisms were deadly. Bacteria and viruses infected everything they touched, causing diseases that could kill within hours. And somewhere on this world of death, a primitive species was struggling to survive. The Velrani scanners detected them on a large continent. They were soft-bodied creatures with no natural armor, no claws, no venom, and no special abilities that would help them survive. They walked on 2 legs, and used their upper limbs to manipulate simple tools made of stone and wood. They lived in small groups, constantly moving to avoid the predators that hunted them. Urelvin watched recordings of these creatures for hours. She saw them huddled around fires at night, the flames keeping away the darkness and the things that lived within it. She saw them burying their dead with what appeared to be rituals and ceremonies. She saw them painting images on cave walls, trying to make sense of the hostile universe they had been born into. They had the spark of intelligence. Given enough time, they might develop into a true civilization. But Yerelven knew they would never get that chance. She compiled her report and sent it to the Galactic Council headquarters on Villar Prime. The message was received by High Counselor Krelvas, also of the Velrani species, who read the findings with growing concern. The planet, designated Sol 3 by its position in the solar system, was too dangerous to ignore. The pathogens alone could devastate entire sectors of the galaxy if they ever escaped the planet. The predatory species could not be allowed to spread to other worlds, and the primitive intelligent species, while showing promise, would almost certainly be destroyed by their own environment before they could achieve anything meaningful. Krelvas called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from over 300 species gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall. They reviewed the data from the Eternal Light and debated what should be done. Some argued for immediate intervention, suggesting that the intelligent species should be relocated to a safer world where they could develop properly. Others countered that such interference violated the fundamental laws governing contact with primitive civilizations. In the end, the Council reached a decision that would echo through history. Sol 3, the blue planet, was designated Quarantine Zone 7734. Automated warning beacons would be placed around the entire solar system, broadcasting messages in all known languages. Any vessel approaching would be turned away. Any species attempting to make contact with the planet would face severe penalties under galactic law. The message was simple and direct. Biohazard containment zone, extreme environmental hazards, hostile fauna. No species has survived initial contact. Approach forbidden by Galactic Law 4491. Krelvas personally authorized the deployment of the beacon network. As he signed the order, he felt a moment of sadness for the primitive creatures struggling to survive on that death world. They would never know that a galaxy full of intelligent life existed just beyond their reach. They would never know that their world had been deemed too dangerous for contact. It did not matter. They would be dead soon anyway. The Council estimated that the species would survive no more than a few hundred years. The harsh conditions would eventually prove too much. Disease would spread, predators would hunt them to extinction. The planet itself would kill them with its storms and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Nature always won in the end. The beacon network was activated. The quarantine was established. The galaxy moved on to other concerns. 3,000 years passed. Civilizations rose and fell. New species joined the Council, while others faded into history. Wars were fought, and peace treaties were signed. Technology advanced in ways that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations. The Galactic Council grew and changed, adapting to the endless flow of time. And through it all, Quarantine Zone 7734 sat forgotten on the edge of explored space. The beacons continued their endless broadcast, warning away any ship that wandered too close. Occasionally, a curious explorer would check the status of the zone and confirm that the signals were still active. The dangerous planet was still there, still trapped behind its wall of warnings. No one bothered to look closer. No one thought to wonder what might be happening on the surface of that forgotten world. No one imagined that the soft, weak creatures they had abandoned 3,000 years ago might have found a way to survive. The galaxy was about to receive a reminder that nature does not always win. Sometimes, against all odds, life finds a way to fight back. And sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is not a predator with sharp teeth or a virus with no cure. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is a species that refuses to die.